continuing to work tonight on mentally tough and really being winners for the Lord. If I redo this here, get us on the right page. So, throughout these weeks, I've really enjoyed actually the reminder of a lot of the things that we've gone through. Last week pushed me a little bit, and this week's pushing me a lot. So this is a little bit of a kick in the behind for me, but it's a necessary one. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to go through this and to be not just reminded, but in this case pushed a little bit about being the best I can be for the Lord. So we talked about attitude, and this is really a key point. The essence of mental toughness. My attitudes and emotions are intimately connected, and I assume full responsibility for my attitudes. Again, we've hit this bunch of ways, but I'll just want to emphasize that it's actually incredibly liberating when we understand that nobody else can control our attitude. That God has given us the means of being able to control our own attitude, and then we can give our best to Him. We talked about motivation, discovering the source of our passion, and loving the battle more than the outcome. I really encourage you in this too. You gotta love the battle. And sometimes envisioning it in terms of putting on the full armor of God and waging war against the devil. And we just gotta love doing it. Okay? There are tremendous challenges, and sometimes in the moment, very, very difficult things. But to have that battle cry within you and enjoying it is really important. And one of the things Phil said in his prayer, that the different things that we do, and it looks differently for each one of us, but the different things that we do, when we're doing it for the Lord, it counts. And so to be able to have joy sometimes in the little things, understanding they're meaningful, our labor is not in vain in the Lord. Visualization, hope you guys have worked on this a little bit. Relaxation image, energizing image, finest hour image. But the ultimate power of visualization lies in your self-image. And we talked about that last week in reference to particularly faith, living by faith, the image that God has given to us, and ultimately the picture of Jesus in glory. And then last week we talked about exercise, the importance of aerobic exercise. 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week, just how good it is for your brain, how good it is for your mind. It is 2 or 3 hours a week, and oftentimes that's tough to find. Okay? You're busy. Where do I get the time to do that? But if you want to be tough on yourself, look at your screen time, and then say, could you spend some of that time out for a walk? Just focus on what you can control. You do get it. You do make it. You more than make up for that time in other areas of your life, the efficiency that jumps up. And make a point to have fun in each phase. Mr. Edgar, I don't know if it works for you to show that little video clip again, or not. I didn't get that prepped really ahead of time. So, Cliff, are you hearing anything? Okay, he's going to go for it. This is off of Nikki Morancic's lesson that she had done for us. A video we made. I think some of the things she hit in that lesson was really good for it's anyways, explain what. So Matthew has a curriculum called YOLO, Youth Overcoming Life's Obstacles, and there were different contributors to that, and that one was one that Nikki Morancic, I think you know John and Nikki from Billings. Nikki is a good friend of Denya's, nurse, and she had put together a lesson on both fuel and fitness, so active lifestyle and eating healthy, and that was just a video summary of that. And so I thought it made some good points very quickly that we could throw here to remind us of why exercise and nutrition are important. So hopefully that answers that. It is a reminder to me that of both of those things being important. We want to give God our best, right? Romans 12:1. What did Paul say there? I urge you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, right, which is your spiritual service. And so I don't want to get too emphasized on the physical. Obviously, last week's and this week's are primarily physical based, and we know the spiritual is, of course, the most important. But I do find it interesting in the book of Malachi when people were giving tithe, and they were basically finding ways to rob God. And the Lord asked the question, would you give what's lame, would you give that to basically pay your taxes to your governor? Why would you give what's lame to the Lord? Okay? Don't be going through your herd and taking what's lame. Give him your best. And so I think, just in reference to myself, to think for me to be able to give God my best, there's some things that I need to do consistently to be able to be at my best. And those include exercise, we talked about last week. I won't reiterate it. I did like something I heard, I think Nikki might have had it in there, but that sitting is the new smoking. And smoking used to be something that people participated in a lot. Now I know there's vaping and all that, but we'll just say in place of smoking, there is the lifestyle that we have in our current culture, not very much movement involved. And so it's important to find ways for us to get out and move. Diet, just a few scriptures that I thought of. I feel compassion for the people. Jesus said, I do not wish to send them away hungry, for they might faint on the way. If you've ever been hangry and close to fainting, you know this can be a very real thing. Now, this was after a few days without food, but do you not know your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you? This verse is actually about immorality. Okay, it often gets pulled out of context here. So really, again, the emphasis much more in the scripture is what's going on in the inside and internally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and how that comes out. But it is true that we do want to take care of what God has given to us. Man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And Jesus said, I am the bread of life. So we can make some spiritual application. Tonight I am going to key in on some physical things, though, of this. There's definitely a direct relationship between diet and mental performance. I'll give just a quick example. When I went and visited Elena and got for her to work on me, kind of the initial dental hygiene stuff, one of her teachers that was there, that was kind of just watching and checking, making sure everything, I guess Elena had a lady from the church in Great Falls earlier that morning come and see her. And she wanted to bring Elena a latte, so she did, but I guess she didn't quite get perfectly what she wanted at the first place. So this lady was so nice, like Elena didn't tell her, she just knew what Elena's order was, and they didn't have it at the first place, but she still got something. Then she went to another place and got another one, so she came in with two. So she gave Elena one, and Elena's like to her teacher, you want this? And her teacher's like, okay, yeah, sure. Well, her teacher hardly ever has caffeine. And still, by the time I was there, this lady she talked to me about it, the teacher. She was buzzing, okay? So there is a relationship between diet and mental performance. Okay? This lady was actually having a little bit of a difficult time that day because of it. So if you modify your dietary habits, you can achieve substantially greater emotional control. Sustained mental energy results from eating the right foods at the right time. I will make in case you were wondering, I will make a disclaimer here. I am by no means an expert on diet. Okay? I do know Josh Wallace is really into food and the way that it works within the body and the mind. And I've told him sometime I'll give him the opportunity to come up and be a little more expert than I certainly am on this. But there are some basic things that we can recognize, all of us, understand, and get working for us instead of against us. What you eat, how much you eat, and when you eat it changes the chemistry of your digestive tract and the chemical balance of your nervous system. Just out of curiosity, how many of you, I'll say men tonight, how many of you men, before you get up and preach, how many of you, Davis, I know you like coffee and like it quite a fair amount, but if you have an important message that you want to give, do you drink more coffee or less? Or the normal, so you're in your routine? Okay, he does a little more, okay. I know for myself, I back it off a little because I don't need more jittery. Okay, even the little coffee pocket candy. Thank you, Mr. Gothard. But these things have an impact. Your emotional state, your ability to perform is a direct reflection of that delicate chemical balance in the brain. The major difference between food and drugs is that you ingest more food. We talked last week about drugs and their ability to change the chemical balance in the brain. And so a lot of people try to shortcut stuff by doing drugs, whether they be legal or illegal. Well, food is, I don't want to say it's illegal. We know what the scripture says about it. Even Jesus declared all foods clean. But food has a tremendous impact on our performance. We used to think, I don't even know if we'll have, did anybody see the recent news? I shouldn't veer off into this, but that we have signed, the United States, one of the nations that signed no more coal plants by 2035 or something. It's like, what in the world is going on? But that's not at all what this picture is actually supposed to be about. Where this country's in trouble. So we want to make the most of our time for the Lord. But the old theory was that food was merely fuel. Its impact on the brain was like the impact of coal on a computer. In other words, by the time electricity gets to this building and we have the lights on in here, we don't care that at the source what they burned to get the fuel. We have it has no relevance on our electricity here. And people used to basically think the same thing. Just throw in your stuff, out comes energy, and we don't really care about it. But we understand it is a lot more, it's a lot bigger deal than that. Food is definitely fuel. The question is, what kind of fuel are you putting in? Out of curiosity, does anybody here use higher grade fuel when you fill up your vehicle with gasoline? Anybody? Yeah, in the car. Okay. I use the cheap stuff because I drive cheap vehicles. Okay? So it really doesn't matter too much for me, but if you have a nicer vehicle, it makes sense to put in nicer fuel. So part of how you view yourself in terms of physically and what you're going to do for the Lord, it would make sense to put in better fuel. Many compounds present in foods have a direct link to your body's production of various neurotransmitters. There's so much in this. There's just one example that we'll look at here quickly. But these do impact the chemical balance of your brain, which in turn affects your performance. Your 10 a.m. presentation is affected by your breakfast menu. That's a reality. I'm going to veer off for just a second. Your performance as you age is also greatly impacted by your consistent daily diet over time. This, at my age, it is starting to catch up with me. Actually, it's starting to get a little more real because some of my bad habits over time are starting to have consequences now. So basically what I'm saying is, whatever age you are, I forget the question my dad asked, when was the best time to sow for the harvest? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Right now, right? So we're going to key in tonight more on the short-term impact, but I think we all can agree there's a tremendous long-term impact on diet and your health. If you have poor diet over a consistent period of years, when you are old, it will have all sorts of impacts. I won't go into all of this because, like I say, I'm no expert, but even a lot of Alzheimer's, dementia, those kind of things are a result of brain inflammation, and some of that comes from the foods that we have been eating. And that's not to mention the things that showed up there: diabetes, type 2 diabetes, heart problems, etc. So it's important, both short-term and long-term. The components of specific foods can cause measurable changes in your internal chemistry. We have a basic understanding, and they have a lot more than when this was made. They're just two examples that they use here. Tryptophan, an amino acid, is used by your body to make serotonin. Does this word sound familiar? Tryptophan? Turkey. Hey, turkey for a turkey. What they always say after Thanksgiving, you eat your turkey, assuming you didn't overindulge in everything else and you can barely move but just that turkey, what's it supposed to make you feel like? A little bit sleepy, right? Serotonin, those things. And then there's a similar link between tyrosine and norepinephrine. I'm just going to say this is one example. In the high positive, your neurotransmitters, norepinephrine and serotonin, are in balance. In the high negative, the norepinephrine, the level varies with the quantity of tyrosine. If there's too much, you can be very jittery, on edge. Low positive, serotonin is a little higher, and you're in that low positive chill, just ready to drink your milk and go to bed. And then low negative is deficient levels of both of these. Science is a little complicated. You can't just shovel in foods that are rich in tryptophan. Tryptophan does always increase serotonin production. Here's what I want to get to. The key to maintaining adequate levels of both is to eat a balanced diet. It's like God made us. Okay? He knows what we need, and if you eat a balanced diet, things are going to be naturally in the right balance. Let's look at the typical American diet. We will call this the non-performance diet. Okay? As a matter of fact, you would have a hard time finding a worse. You would have to try hard to do worse than what a typical non-performance American diet is. Okay? Sometimes we think about we wouldn't treat our horses like that. Some of us feed our dogs better than we feed ourselves, okay, in terms of healthy things. Not my family. If you've seen Curry, he's just as bad. But anyways, a lot of people, they skip breakfast. There isn't time. I'll come back to intermittent fasting in a bit, but just as a general rule, if this is not part of your strategy, skipping breakfast because there isn't time is not a great way to start your day. Okay? You run out the door stressed from being late and then not eating anything. You are at work, there's donuts at break time, and you eat a chocolate donut at 10 a.m. This is great. Get you going good. At lunch, you have a couple drinks, whether they be sodas or alcoholic. Hopefully they're just sodas, but either way, sodas, steak sandwich, fries. You have the coffee or the candy bar at 3 p.m. Or today, what's the big thing? The energy drinks, right? High caffeine, high sugar, unless you get the sugar-free ones. We're not talking about sugar-free, but that stuff's bad for you too. Anyways, but okay, this is to get you through the last part of this. Big dinner at 7 p.m. Your brownies and milk at bedtime. This is a tough way to live. Now, you can do it. Okay? We've proven. Some guys are exceptions to the rule. 100% oxygen level and 87 and still going and can eat your brownies and milk at bedtime still and go. Some of you might remember Don Love from Billings. Don Love did love every night bowl of vanilla ice cream with raspberries on top. And he lived a long life. He did die of a heart attack. I don't think it was the ice cream, but he did live a long life and did well. But this is not a great way. We want to think about consistent, high-quality performance as a result of consistent, high-quality energy supply. Okay? Consistent is a key word here for both on this. If you want consistent, high-quality performance. So at some point, you do ask yourself, do I care about it? Okay, maybe we don't care enough. We just, 70% is good enough in reference to our day in, day out, so eat whatever you want. Okay, but if you want a better performance, then it is going to be important what you put in. Food contains 6 required nutrients: water, minerals, vitamins, proteins, fats, carbohydrates. I would say drink plenty of water and take a good multivitamin. It is very easy to not get enough water when you drink a bunch of other stuff. Okay? So water should be your primary drink, and then if you want to throw in some coffee beans, Mr. Ashley on the side, however that works. And I think a good multivitamin, just because it is difficult to get everything that we need from our food in terms of probably a lot of the micronutrients. The amount, quality, timing of proteins, fats, and carbs do have a direct impact on mental performance. I'm just going to fly through a little bit of this. Nerve cells and muscle cells both get their energy from glucose and oxygen, which is carried by the blood. If there isn't enough glucose, the result is hypoglycemia. Any of you ever had I'm getting it right now, can't talk. Hypoglycemic, okay? And it is very difficult to function when you are hypoglycemic. I have never had an extreme, I've actually had a chemistry TA in college who was, and he had a day that he was hypoglycemic and was not, he was not able to do the job that was needed to be done. He had a little hypoglycemic crash or whatever. But I've been there. There's something in my life that I get a little bit, struggle with a little bit, and it is impossible to be in your ideal performance state when you are even moving that direction. The flip side, too much glucose thickens the blood and increases work for the heart. There's no top performance either. Question, how many of you keep track a little bit of your resting heart rate? Like you have a smartwatch and you can look back and just check it out. Have you ever, for the fun of it, hopefully you all eat healthy consistently and you don't have this, but for me, I've gone long stretches where I eat really poorly. And then start eating well and eating clean. And when you eat clean, actually for me, it's within a few days and over a period of a couple weeks, my resting heart rate substantially drops with no other changes, period. It's a really amazing thing because your heart has to work harder when you aren't eating right. It's just all there is to it. It's having to take energy that it should be able to use for other things to try to fix the mess that you've created for it. Body tries to maintain an adequate glucose level, providing more while energy demands are high and cutting back when they're low. The non-performance diet, of course, works against you. When you awaken, it's after a long-term period of low energy demand. You're sleeping, you don't need high energy. Okay? You hop up, your body doesn't store glucose. If you eat right away, it's going to get glucose from what you ate. Okay? If you don't eat, the liver dumps glycogen into your system so it can be converted to glucose. To do this quickly, your body dumps in epinephrine, which pushes you toward the high negative. Have any of you, over the years, I've found it interesting. Sometimes we do this to our kids. Okay? And our kids come to school and the parents didn't eat.
The kids didn't eat. You're running late. There's stress. It just doesn't put anybody in a position to win. Okay? And part of it starts with just a good breakfast. If you skip your breakfast, then this happens, pushes toward high negative. By mid-morning, your blood sugars have dropped. You feel hungry. You grab that donut. Well, what does that do? I think most of us understand the way sugar works. Common sugar is sucrose. That makes the glucose level rise, which brings on the insulin. The muscles get more energy in the short run, temporarily. The brain doesn't. Okay? When the glucose level drops as a result of the insulin, then there's that much less fuel for the brain. This is not just from a physical standpoint. Okay? Physical performance is also true. Sugar crashes are real. Okay? But if there's nothing else you get out of this tonight, get this one. All sugar does is starve your brain. And there's a lot of sugar. I mean, it tastes good, and you get a quick, instant gratification from it, but it puts you in this cycle that's very difficult to get out of. Then still on that non-performance diet, your lunch is full of protein and fat. If we think about a Ferrari, which we should think about, runs on high-octane fuel. You're not sure what fuel to use, so you just build a trailer to pull behind it, and you load the trailer with charcoal, grass clippings, cow manure, wood scraps, buffalo chips, all that stuff, and just throw it in there and run it through. Can it run? I mean, I suppose you have some sort of processor back there, but it's not going to run very well. Okay? And its performance suffers for a number of reasons, but one of it is because it has to haul the trailer and convert the scraps to fuel. We don't want that in our life. Do it all over again with dinner. So again, your body having to transform bad fuel requires energy that could be spent on other things. How many of you have ever tried eating a big meal, maybe not intentionally, but right before a hard workout? You just ate, somebody then grabs you and says, let's go. How's that go? How's that work? Your body's competing, isn't it? Are you going to use your energy to work out? Or are you going to use your energy to digest the food? And so it's very real day in, day out in our lives. You do have to create your own designer diet. This is important. I want to hit a few things here at the end of this, but each one of us, you are going to have to find something that works for you. Okay? We are all wired differently. The same on exercise, actually. So you have to learn about yourself. Okay? We can give an example of a good diet. You have to experiment. Keep track of what you eat, how much, when, and the effects on your performance. I find it interesting. Has anybody ever told you, maybe helped you with your finances and said, keep track of everything you spend for a month? Nobody likes to do that. Nobody actually likes to keep. Now, I know your debit card statements and all that can tell you, but nobody wants to actually write down what you spent on everything for the month. Why? Because it's embarrassing. Okay? Sometimes the wastefulness is like you don't want to actually look at that and come face to face with how much the nickel and dimes burns you. Well, the same with what we eat. Oftentimes people don't want to do this. Any of you ever use MyFitnessPal or something like that? There's some really great apps out there, and I'm not trying to. One thing, I used to like MyFitnessPal when they gave you more stuff for free. Of course, the trick is to try to get you to pay. But one thing you can do with something MyFitnessPal for free, something along these lines, I would encourage you, is plug in what you eat every day for a period of time. And you can look at your macronutrients and everything else in that, and it will give you an honest look at what you are doing. If you're serious about this, and you have to figure out how serious you want to be. I'm not going to put that on you. You choose how serious. I am not going to be extreme and keep track of every single little thing every day for the rest of my life. I'm not willing to do that. But to get a feel of what you're actually doing, if you don't track, it's really easy to kid yourself. I've mentioned this before about running. If you don't log how many days you actually worked out, it's easy to tell yourself, I worked out 5 days last week when it was actually 4 or maybe 3. Your brain can play tricks on you. So it is worth keeping track of what you eat and the effects on your performance. When you do that, then you can find a maximum performance diet that works for you. The most important purpose is to ensure the nervous system has an adequate and continuous supply of glucose throughout the day. If digestion occurs slowly and continuously, the body produces glucose at the proper levels for good mental performance. Okay? And I know intermittent fasting is something different. I'll touch on this. But in general, small meals at regular intervals, like 3 hours apart, are best. Okay? It's continuous. Your body's being able to, and your mind are being able to get the fuel on a consistent basis. If you eat the regular 3 big meals a day, and are like me, I love rancher's dinner, big meal at night, it's not the most efficient way to get the energy that you need. Intermittent fasting, it's a really big thing. Some of you, I'm sure, probably do it, and it works for you. There are some benefits of, I think they call it autophagy, your body's ability to go into repair, all of that. For me, I've tried it very diligently twice, and for my body, I do not do well with intermittent fasting. For me, I definitely do best if I have smaller meals every few hours. It's just consistent, keeps my sugar levels consistent and my energy consistent. You have to figure out yourself. I know there are some people that really works well for them. But 2 factors determine how much grazing, that's more continuous eating, more meals, will improve performance, quantity, and quality. The average woman, there's a lot that goes into this, so this is just a little bit of a ballpark figure. Depends on your age, depends on your activity, etc. Average woman needs about 2,000 calories a day, while the average man needs about 2,400 calories per day. The actual amount, of course, is determined by many factors. But 5 small meals, if you break that up into 5 small meals, divide it by what you got, and try to get something pretty general in that area of how many calories. You do want to keep track of your macronutrients. This is what they always teach, something along these lines: 50 to 60% carbohydrates, 15 to 25% proteins, 25% fats. I personally don't agree with this. Okay, my body personally does best with about 30, I know that only adds up to 90, but about a third of each of this. You have to figure out what works for you. Complex carbohydrates such as whole grains, fruits, and vegetables are much better than refined carbs. Anything that's refined, sugars, refined processed wheat, that kind of stuff, processed flour, is going to give you the spikes instead of the continual energy. Obviously, if you move more, so the more active you are, then the more carbs that you are going to actually need. There are some benefits of carbs for sure. Fish and fowl are a better source of protein than red meat. I love red meat. I'm really thankful for it. Thankful it's some of those clean animals that God allows us. But there are some long-term, you do have to be careful with that. General, just think about macronutrients, proteins. I think most of us it's pretty common information, but where you get your proteins from, where you get your fats from, and there are definitely better sources than others on this. And then carbohydrates, again, we're familiar with. Few different types of diets, just kind of closing up. Paleo, lean meats, fish, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds. Basically shop the outside of the grocery store. It's a decent all-around way. I know a couple of elite level CrossFit type people who are very much paleo. Okay? It's a good general way to eat. Keto, some of you maybe have done the keto diet, and that works very well for some people. The one thing I would encourage you or tell you to be a little bit careful of is if you do keto, you need to be consistent with it. If you're bouncing in and out, that's where you run into more problems because your body's in terms of switching over. So if you want to do keto and that works for you, you're getting your energy, you're shifting your metabolism to get your energy from fats and ketones instead of from carbs. And then the Mediterranean diet, things like that, primarily plant-based. I don't mean vegetarian, but you are starting with your vegetables, fruits, those kinds of things, and then going out and having, fish and then a little bit of red meat. But it's kind of the secondary part of that. So those are different types. I think we all have access to what that looks like. I don't like these guys' example. I think it's way too low on protein personally. So I'll just skip that. You can find online, and you got to work this out again yourself. Your diet does have to contain foods that you like. If it's self-deprivation, you won't stay with it. Okay? It's just the reality. So you need to find things that you like, and I'm very blessed. I like every kind of food, almost. I like it all. So it makes it easy for me. I can eat the right stuff. I feel a little bit bad for my dad. He tried to get my dad to eat Mediterranean diet. I'm not sure what he likes on there, except for the red meats. So I like it all. It's just, okay, find the right stuff and feed yourself that. A performance diet is something you follow for the rest of your life. This is important for me. So if it helps you too, you aren't trying to do it to just get to a goal, to hit a certain weight. It's something that that you can implement as a lifestyle, and this is who you are. Okay, this is the way you eat day in, day out. And it should enhance your life. And it does, actually. I mean, this is not the Luke Wilson show tonight, so I have so many reasons to eat well. When I don't, I feel crummy in very many practical ways. So, I don't know what your motivation is, but I have plenty of reasons to. So you guys can encourage me. Luke, do this. Okay? It's the ultimate goal, of course, is to be your best for the Lord. Again, keep a daily chart. I would encourage you, okay, if you're serious about this. The end, your daily intake of food does have a very real impact on your performance, both short-term and long-term. We do get a lot of sugar, guys, in our culture, and sugar starves your brain. You're just going to have a hard time being at your best, not to mention the long-term negative health impacts of this. Is it fair to say it this way? Love yourself enough to take care of yourself. When Scripture says husbands love your wives, one of the things it says is no man ever hated his own flesh. Well, do you love yourself enough to take care of yourself, to give yourself what you need? And then do you love God enough to give God your best? Again, I'm getting an age in my life where it's like, okay, Luke, do you want to be able to be effective the last years of your life, your existence on this planet, or do you want to start having serious health breakdowns where you're going to be severely limited in what you can do because you're not willing to get this lined up right? So I want to give God my best. Be proactive, not reactive. This is true across the board in life. And if you can put yourself in this position in terms of eating, eat for fuel. Figure out what your body needs and design it and be proactive about that. It's not just calories in and out, though obviously overindulgence is going to catch up with us, any of us in any way, but it's not just calories in and out. Macronutrients are important. What are you eating? I will also throw this out there. If you do intermittent fast, intermittent fasting doesn't mean that you go. One thing I like about intermittent fasting is schedule. I'm a very scheduled person. But if you do like 16 hours without and you eat in an 8-hour window, it still doesn't mean that you eat whatever you want in that 8-hour window. Okay, if you eat junk, you're still going to feel like junk. Okay, and your performance is going to be junk. So macronutrients are important. And then ultimately, we want a strong body, a healthy mind, so that we can fulfill God's purpose for our life. So, Lord willing, this was, if for you, just either a reminder, if you're doing great, keep it up. If it's something you want to look at in your life to take a step forward, myself, hopefully it was a good opportunity for you to just think about this yourself and to be able to give God your best. Yes, Mel, we're about wrapping up here, so I don't see my mic, but I'll give you this.
One thing I noticed in basic training when I was in the Army, that the guys that came in that were overweight lost weight. Those who were underweight gained weight. Now, I noticed that, and we're eating the same diet. And the thing that I was well aware of, that it was very high in the pasta category. But and this is a person who is, you know, just the average person watching what we were eating, and the fact that guys were overweight lost weight, and those who needed weight gained weight, eating the same food.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting. So they're making sure they get the stuff they need in accordance with the activities and everything that they're doing. So one reason probably it was high in pasta is you put on the miles in basic training. So you definitely need some carbs. If you're distance running, you're going to need more carbs than if you work at an office job and you only walk half an hour 4 days a week. It's going to be a difference in what you need. So just, Lord willing, this will encourage us all to take a look and to give God our best. Next week we'll work on the Holy Spirit. breath control.